It's okay. It's okay to feel stuck in your career. I was there once too. It was actually hearing other people's stories and professional backgrounds that helped me get out of that rut because I was able to understand why they made certain decisions and just apply it to my own life. So I want to share with you my story and professional background, and maybe that will help you in your own decisions and careers. Hopefully, if you're feeling stuck in your career, to validate your feelings, because that is a very, very common thing to feel. I was one of those stories that chose to travel in their 20s and kind of explore different jobs. And I graduated with a recreational therapy degree and then worked in a maximum security prison for 2 years, got burnt out, went and traveled, worked overseas at a nonprofit, and that was really great. But when I got back, I had no idea what to do. I was 26, about to be 27. I had friends buying houses, friends with high-level positions in their companies, and I just felt really behind. And I didn't know what to do. Often when you hit a wall in life, that's kind of when you're just forced to learn things. And that's what I did. I learned how to optimize my LinkedIn. Once I did that, someone reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in an executive assistant role. I said sure, because at the time I was kind of desperate. I wanted to learn new skills and learn businesses, and executive assistant just seemed like a really great role to start at. And it was. I'm really glad I took that role. I was an executive assistant for 3 years for 3 different CEOs. So I got to see different sides of businesses, of industries. I got to work at a startup. I got to work for a web development agency. I got to work for a fintech company. So I learned a lot, and I don't take any of it for granted. But in my last job as an executive assistant, I remember the very moment when I knew that this was not it. This was not for me. And it was when I was sitting at my dinner table with my glass of wine. The day was over. I was about to eat. I was relaxed, looking forward to my meal. And then my phone buzzes. And I look down and my heart just sinks because it was my boss. When you're an executive assistant, you're kind of at your executive's beck and call. And I knew he was traveling, so I picked up, and lo and behold, problems were happening with his reservations. So I spent the next hour working with the hotel, with car rentals, trying to get things booked, trying to get things straightened out. And by the time I got off the phone, my dinner was cold and it was almost bedtime. That was when I kind of knew that this was not the trajectory that I wanted to go down. And with executive assistant, there's no clear career path. It's kind of like open. There's lots of directions you can take. So I was in this place in my life where I knew that I didn't want to be doing what I was doing, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. And there you go. I felt stuck in my career and I didn't know how to get out of it. There just wasn't any clear next step. I Googled common career paths for executive assistants. I just started consuming a bunch of information and researching. But it just was really overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. There were so many paths that I could go down, and there was lots of ways to get there. There wasn't like a clear way to get to any certain path, whether it was chief of staff, chief of operations, project manager, program manager, product owner, all of those things. I was just overwhelmed. I had no idea which direction to go. I think I'm that kind of person that just feels like, oh, I just need to know a little bit more and then I'll know what to do. But when that happens, you kind of get stuck in this hamster wheel of research and information and learning, and then you never make a move because you're just researching. I just had to stop and breathe and then come to the conclusion that I don't know what I don't know. And what I need to do is figure out what I do need to know in order to make a move forward. And then once I know those things, to just not research anymore and make a decision and choose a path. That really helped me. Basically, I asked myself questions like, okay, what skills do I have and want to use in my next role? What skills do I want to grow in my next role? What kind of business or company do I want to work at? What kind of culture? Once I answered those questions, I was able to get a framework, a little box of things And from those things, narrow those down. It helped me sort of get to, I think, like 3 or 4 different roles, like project management, business analyst, data analyst, and product management. If you're curious about what those questions are or want to do that for yourself, I will link a free resource below, just a sheet of questions that I asked myself that you can also ask yourself, because it was really helpful to me. Another thing that I thought about that was really helpful, I tell a lot of people this because I think about it all the time, but there was a career mentor that I had a meeting with a while back. She told me about her husband who was at a very high position in a nonprofit organization, and his job essentially was to create programs, create trainings in order for other people to do their job well. She coined it his gold string that threads throughout his life, and that we all have this gold string that threads throughout his life, or through our life. Now, he suffered a brain injury, unfortunately was not at the cognitive level that he was before, so he couldn't go back to his old job. So he ended up taking a job at his brother's construction site, where as they were working, he would help organize the tools and bring them back to their toolboxes so that when each worker was working, they would know exactly where to find the tools. And he enjoyed that. He loved it. He was essentially doing the same thing. He was creating an environment in order for other people to do their job well. That was his gold string. And she told me that in every position you try to figure out what your gold string is and if that gold string can weave through that position. And that's stuck with me. And for me, my gold string has always sort of been being the bridge and being like the level between 2 different parties. And I think that's why I liked being an executive assistant, because you are the bridge between your executive and all of the other employees, all of the other stakeholders that our business works with, all the other projects that we're involved in. And I loved being that bridge and connecting the 2 and making sure that everyone was on the same page, everyone was happy, everything was working like a well-oiled machine. So knowing that, I narrowed down those positions, because each of those roles that I started honing in on would allow me to practice my gold string. So maybe that will help you too. Okay, so I found my gold string. I narrowed down the positions even more to business analyst and project manager. Once you know what path you want to go down, now it's like, okay, well, how do I get there? You just kind of get stuck again. So I reached out to a bunch of people on LinkedIn that had the title business analyst and also project manager, and I just asked them for informational interviews. I think on the business analyst side, I reached out to over 50 people, 10-ish people replied, and I talked to all of them. There were so many pathways that each took to get to that role. Some it was because they got an MBA and they were able to get an internship and fell into that role. Some of them started off as like a different position within a company, didn't have an MBA, but because they were already in the company and the company knew them, when business analyst role opened up, they were able to transition. So there's just lots of ways to get to a certain role or position. Every path is going to look different. That's why it can be so overwhelming, I know. So I narrowed it down to project management and business analyst, and I was like, great, well, I don't have any direct experience with these. What do I do? Why would people want to hire me if I have never been either of these things? So I took it upon myself to get certain certifications and then also practice each of the skill sets within the jobs I already had. I had a full-time job and a part-time job. I got my Scrum Master certification. I got my Certified Associate Project Management certification. Then I went to my boss within the startup company. I said, hey, I noticed that we're having a little bit of miscommunication between our engineers and our sales marketing team. Can I be the project manager / Scrum Master? I just got these certs. I know the framework, and I really want to roll it out within our company. And he said yes. So I was able to do that. And when I was interviewing for project management roles, I was able to share that I actually did play a project management part. And I was leading projects and I was being the Scrum Master and leading all the Scrum ceremonies. And then for the business analyst side, in my part-time job, I was a virtual assistant. She had an account with ActiveCampaign and would send 2 emails every month and had a bunch of this data. It's just a spreadsheet and it doesn't really tell a story. It doesn't really give any insight into how she can do her business better, insight into which emails are doing well. So I took it on myself to make her a whole dashboard that would tell her exactly the topics that did the best, the topics that had the most click-through rates, that people seemed to engage with the most, was able to point out certain trends that she had no idea. And it was really helpful to her. So when I had interviews for a business analyst role, even though I was never a business analyst, I was able to say, I actually practiced those skills within my previous role. I kind of kept at it doing those things for a while until something finally stuck. But it took a while and it took a lot of work and research and talking to people and putting myself out there. But it worked, it happened. And if you're feeling stuck or if you want to transition to project management or transition to some other career, these are some methods you could use. These are some ideas you can try, but know that it is going to take work and initiative. But it's possible. It's definitely possible. If you're feeling stuck, then try those questions out in the description. Reflect, figure out what your gold string is in your life, and then use those things to narrow down your pathways and then finally choose a path to go down. Hopefully that will get you out of your rut. So that's my story. I hope that helped kind of like shed some light on areas in your life that maybe feel a little dark and unknown. Or maybe you're just here to listen to me talk, see my room. I don't know. But anyways, just know that you don't have to have it all figured out today. It's okay. The answers will come. I'd love to know where you're at, if you're feeling this way, or what your gold string is. If you drop it in the comments below, I love hearing what other people's gold string is. If you have any questions, drop them down below and maybe I'll answer in the comments or maybe I'll make a video answering them. I hope that was helpful and thank you for listening to my story and sitting here with me.